Hey fish family, welcome back to J. Oliver's Guppies and Aquatics. Today we're talking brine shrimp. Hatching live baby brine shrimp. Yep, I've got a lot of requests and on how I do it, so I figured I would take you guys along for today and show you step by step on how I do it. I'm about to pull the airline out and move this to a different location with a light on it and let it settle for about 10-15 minutes, and then I'll siphon it down. So let's jump to the next spot. So for me, I just simply have an airline down in the jar and then hooked on with a little clip to the top. This is a half-gallon pickle jar, I believe. So I'm going to take this to a dark closet right beside me here, and I'll jump back to you when we get there. Alright guys, so here we are back. I've got a little shelf in a closet in the laundry room beside the fish room. So I guess it's kind of hard to see actually, it's a little blurry. But I got a little headlight that you can strap around your head. Any light will do, but you want it setting at the bottom of the jar because the brine shrimp will naturally want to go towards the light. Most of them will naturally sink anyway, and all the hatched shells will float towards the top. So I just got it set here. You can see it's still super orange all the way through. That's the color of the live baby brine shrimp. So when you see that color, you know you've got a good harvest ahead of you. When you first put brine shrimp eggs in, it's just dark, brownish gray looking. So I will jump back here in about 10 minutes with you guys and let you see the difference on how the water top part will be a lot more clear and all the brine shrimp will be down low, and I'll show you how I siphon them out, and we'll go on to the next step. Alright guys, we're back about 15 minutes later. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little closer to show you the layer of eggs that have built up here on the top. So that's a good sign. That's what you want to see, and most of it has gone clear. Move it down. It's going to be a bit murky. The water's a little cloudy anyway. It won't get very clear, but as you get down here closer to the bottom, notice that they've mostly settled here. And we can go ahead and zoom in just a tad bit more for a second. See, these guys are tiny. It's so fine, it's hard to pinpoint them, but if you look over here, you can just see them moving a bit better there. But I'm gonna back out just a hair for you guys and try to explain this. It's going to be a bit dark, but all I have for a siphon, since I do it in the pickle jar, I have a piece of airline tubing simply taped to a metal rod. In my case, I'm using a very large, like a 1 foot long camping tea stake, and I've taped the airline tubing to it right here. So, and down below us I have a bucket to catch the brine shrimp that I'm going to siphon out. So I literally stick the metal part in slowly to not disturb it. I guess I should have zoomed out to show you, but you're about to see it get to the bottom. So I move slowly, and there you can see it coming down into frame. Before I get to the bottom though, I normally take the other end right here and I manually start the siphon by mouth. I just know as soon as the water reaches the top, I pull off and put the end into the bucket. And I normally never have a problem with getting the water in my mouth. But it's super salty. If you ever do, just get a bit in your mouth if you use the method I do. So you can see the siphon just sucking away. And I gotta move real slow because you don't want to stir them up. So I start off slow and work my way around. Oops, see, I just flung a little bit and it Made a cloud of them go in the air. So just take your time, and I normally go around the thing, the whole jar. And then I'll go back the other way. I normally try not to go in a full circle because I'll start it'll start spinning around the jar a bit more. So the main thing is I just go slow when I'm siphoning this out. And I try not to make long, consistent motions that will start stirring up the water. So there will be a little bit of eggs on the bottom, maybe some that didn't hatch or got waterlogged and didn't float up to the top. I will filter those out before the final step, and I'll show you that as well. It's getting pretty clear. I'm going to go around the back side a little bit more. As in clear, I mean I've sucked most of the orange coloring out, which would be the live baby brine shrimp. And if you look here, you can see like every now and then I hit a big pocket of them and you'll see a color of orange go through the siphon line. Probably could have pointed that out at the beginning. Alright, so I'm happy with that. So I'm pull the siphon and let it, make sure it drains out into the bucket below before I pull it out of the bucket. And I just hang my siphon back right there where it's at. Alright, so I'm going to shut it off here, and I'll meet you guys back at the sink. Alright guys, here we are back at the sink. This is the jar that we started with. It's siphoned down. That's about a little over half still left in the jar. I do save about a quart or so. I have just the regular deli cup here, and I have a strainer that I got from Brine Shrimp Direct. But I will strain the water that's left in the jar into this about quart cup. First, normally I get this wet, rinse it off really well so it'll siphon better. I've noticed if I don't pre-wet this, it takes it a whole lot longer for the liquid to strain through. So I normally have to physically rub my finger on the screen of this. I think it's like salt water that builds up on it and really clogs the screen. So you want to make sure you clean all that off from the previous harvesting. Alright, make sure you got it. So I got that there. Go ahead and put it over here. And I learned a long time ago, I have a whole lot better hatch rate if I use about a third at least of the old water in the new harvest or the new hatch out. So let this slowly siphon through. It's catching all the brine shrimp eggs and everything else. Alright, so while that's finishing, I normally turn on straight hot water and I'll rinse this jar out. I use hot water, two things. It helps dissolve the salt from the previous hatching, and it'll also help dissolve the new salt that I have to add here in a minute. So I'll take this out. As you can see, it's full of brine shrimp water and eggs. I'm gonna pour that back into the jar. So you see, because it's kind of hard to tell because the camera is tilted at an angle, but pour that back in there and then use straight hot water to fill this back up the rest of the way. And while I'm doing this, there are still some brine shrimp eggs in this container that I siphoned from, So that's resettling, and all the eggs that I siphoned off the bottom will resettle into the bottom of this container. It's getting a little too full. So just for me, I normally take it down a little bit below the rounded part. And I'll meet you back where I set everything up. Alright guys, we're back. This is where I generally set the brine shrimp hatchery for right now. I have a half a teaspoon measure. I normally add, not even completely full, I'll add baking soda. Baking soda helps raise the pH and raise the TDS. Brine shrimp actually do best around a pH of 10 or higher. So adding baking soda will help you reach that goal. So I add that in there. Get my air line, put it back in. Use my clamp from before and just clamp it back on. Alright, then I take just normal salt and I add 2 tablespoons to the half gallon. And again, this had about a third or so of the previous water still in it. It has helped me personally get way better harvest numbers since I started doing that. Before, when I was using 100% fresh water every time, I wasn't getting nearly as good as hatch rate. So I highly recommend y'all give this method a try if you haven't, and see what kind of results you get. And if you do, leave a comment below and tell me how you do yours, and I'd be glad to know everybody's techniques. So that's got the 2 deals of salt in it, and now I let that set and let all the new salt melt down. And while that's happening, I'll go back to the brine shrimp in the sink and start filtering that out and getting ready to feed. I won't add new brine shrimp eggs to this till I'm done feeding. So I let this set for literally an hour most times, and then I'll add brine shrimp in later on. So I'll see you guys back at the sink. Alright, so we're back at the sink. I'm going to try not to get in the way too much. This drain drains straight outside to the yard, to a garden. This is what you consider gray water. So I'm not worried about just rinsing the brine shrimp eggs right down the drain. Alright. So now that this has had time to settle for a couple of minutes, all the eggs that are in here should be at the bottom, and nothing but brine shrimp should be all throughout. I have to tap the strainer to help the water drain through a bit faster. Hopefully I'm not in the way too bad, and y'all can kind of see what's going on here. So maybe I can turn this back where y'all can see. I'm going to have to let that resettle just a second. This thing got a little too full on me before I could completely empty it out. Alright. So very slowly, I'm going to pour off the rest, and I'm not going to pour everything in here. I'm going to wind up losing some baby brine shrimp just because I don't want to get too much eggshell in there. See if you can see. So there's still some in there, but if you look closely, that's a lot of eggshell still left. So that just gets dumped out. Not worried about it. I hatch plenty of eggs to make up for the difference of loss. So now, I have it figured out that this thing about completely full is exactly the right amount to feed all my tanks that get baby brine shrimp, and that's mainly my guppy tanks or any tanks that has baby fish in it. And this is cold water. Normally just straight cold water I'm fine with. This is slowly draining the last of the salt water out. So let that get about full where I want it. Right there. And then I take this and run a little fresh water through it to get the last of the old water out. I don't personally want that in all my fish tanks. We can turn that off now. Sorry if that's a little loud. Do a few more taps, let the water drain down. And then I just set it in here, kind of shake it around and dump it out. So now that's what I feed to the fish. And to do that, I use a big syringe. This is like a 50 or 60 cc. It's a lot more than that. It's, you know, over 60 cc's by the time you get it pulled all the way out. Alright, so give me a minute and I'll show y'all how I feed some tanks. Alright guys, just to give you a quick idea, I'm going to show you at least these 8 tanks. Only 7 of them have guppies in it though. The top right side has a pair of blue ghost angels. The rest are guppies. So I'm going to show you real quick. I've already fed a few tanks, so my bucket's getting close to empty. But I still got quite a bit. Again, I use a syringe. Each tank will get nearly a full syringe. And they go crazy over it. I'll show you guys a close-up in just a minute. As you can see, there's quite a bit more fish in this tank, so I normally give them a bit extra. Alright, so I do have more tanks to go, but I'll stop right there. I'll give you a little info. If you're wondering why these tanks here look a yellowish, or maybe they may look green to you, it is a yellow color. It's because I do import. Most of y'all already know I'm an importer and seller of guppies mainly. So these are not display tanks, so to speak. This is a business setup. And all my new imports get medicated with nitrofurazone and Canaplex, and that stains the water very yellow. And it'll also kill plants, so you'll notice any yellow tanks don't have any plants in them. They're not sick, as you can tell. They're happy. I'll zoom in here in just a minute. They're all swimming around doing great. It's just I do about 20% water changes at a time, about twice a week at least. So at that rate, it really takes several water changes to filter out all the yellow coloring and get it crystal clear like this one up here is, or maybe this one here that's full of hair algae. I kind of like it though. Alright, so we're going to zoom in on these guys just for a minute, and I got to get back to feeding the rest of the fish. Beautiful. Bunch of fry in here growing out. Lovely fish. Beautiful fish here. We got ribbon fin, and standard fin, snakeskin red lace. Beautiful guppies. Next over here we got the metal bluegrass, doing really well, going to town. Bunch of fry in there. Up here are the juvenile coral bluetails, homebred, that I'm growing out. Very, very nice. Very happy with them. Again, the blue ghost angels, they don't get brine shrimp. Here we have the albino redtail guppies. I may have put just a little bit too much brine shrimp in there, but they do have some babies in there finally. I'm actually not 100% sure what this strain is. It was a bonus strain from my supplier. Didn't have a name on it. So I'm just letting them grow out and do their thing. It's not very clear. I'm sorry about that. Here we got some snakeskin red mosaic guppies. Love these guys. It'll be hard to focus, but they're stunning fish. Alright guys, as you can see, they're all super happy going to town. I still got to feed out the rest of these tanks over here and over here. I just fed the other fish room, but I still got to get these guys fed. They're like, hey, where's the brine shrimp at? These are some of the blue-green dragons growing out. And show you real quick some of the red grass guppies. Alright guys, well I gotta get. Thanks again for watching. This is how I do brine shrimp. Oh, one last thing. I'm gonna cut back and I'll show you adding eggs, I guess, to the brine shrimp. So I will see you guys back shortly. Alright guys, so here we are back about an hour or so later. You want to wait, if you use hot water like I do, you want to wait to let it cool down before you add the eggs, and also let the salt completely dissolve. So I use the same scoop that I put the baking soda in with, and I find for me 3 scoops works out really well for this half-gallon jar. There's one. For me, I feed a bunch of tanks. I have roughly 80 tanks set up around the house. Not every one of them gets brine shrimp, but I add quite a bit of eggs. So in less than 24 hours, this will be ready to harvest. I typically harvest roughly, I give this at least 20 hours before I harvest. And it's normally a very good hatch rate at that point. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. I hope you enjoy it, hope it's helpful, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much.